the best thing to do is get out there and do an art festival. They're a ton of fun once you kind of get over those pre-festival jitters, and they're a great way to start growing yourself as an artist, as a brand, and as a business. Aloha, I'm Welzie, and I'm here to give you your 10 tips for your first art festival. Art festivals can be a little intimidating the first time, but it is for everyone, so it's kind of just a rite of passage. I can't even tell you how many art festivals, art fairs, and all that sort of thing I've done throughout my career, but I wouldn't be where I am today without that. They're such a good way to get out there, show your work, get some honest critique and criticism about it, learn how to do sales, learn how to stand up in front of your art. Tip number 1, you need to know the rules of the art festival. You've already got into it, you've already applied for it, you know, that's a whole nother video right there. But for this one, you've already gotten to the art festival and you're not sure what to do next. The best thing to do is start with the rules. Does it provide a tent? Do you have to bring your own? Does the tent have to be a certain color? I've oftentimes experienced that. How big is the space you have? Is it 10 by 10? Is it 8 by 8? Are you required to have a tablecloth on your table? Are you required to have a table? That sort of thing. So know all the rules about the setup of your booth. That way from there, you can start building on what type of booth you want to do within the parameter of the art festival. All right, tip number 2 is don't overdo it. Simple can be better, all right? This is, you can come up with a super complicated booth for your first booth or second booth or third booth, but at the end of the day, you just need some art hanging up on the walls. You need to have a table out there with some prints on it for people to get. That's the basic form. I've made a mistake in the past of doing booths that I completely custom make, and they're crazy. They needed to fit in a van. They needed to do all this stuff. I spent tons of time doing it. And by the time I got it out there, it didn't even look that great. And I would have been better off going with pro walls or like the standard custom build of art booth. Don't spend more time on your booth than you are making art. It's so important to have a lot of artwork in there that if you spend more hours during the 2 weeks leading up to it making a booth than you do on kind of the other tips I have, then it might not go so well. Even if you think you have a great booth for your first one, you're always going to learn something about your booth, how to do it better next year, how to do this and that. So don't waste too much time on that in the beginning. It's going to kind of unfold as you go. The best thing to do is just get out there and get into a booth. So I kind of said this in tip 1, but you basically need your art on the walls if you have paintings and prints in racks. Okay, it's so simple that way. And if you overcomplicate your print racks or overcomplicate the way you have the walls set up, it's just going to get harder and more difficult to do, and you're going to run into more problems. Don't spend a lot of money on your booth for those first few festivals. I was lucky where I did a couple night markets where I basically just showed up with a couple crates of art. From there, I was able to go, oh, okay, I can spend a little more time on my booth and stuff like that, but just get out there and do it first before you spend a lot of money on your booth. Tip number 3. So you want to have a ton of art. This is so important. I would focus on originals and prints of the originals. If you're starting out, you might just have originals, and that's totally okay. I did only originals for years before I started getting into prints. So focus on making a ton of art, having a ton of variety in there, variety in your style, but you kind of want to, this is your critique. So you want to show kind of everything you have and see what people like and don't like. Oftentimes you'll find a piece that you don't like, other people really love it. So it's going to really help steer you into what you need to be making at these festivals to have fun making your work, as well as selling it and making a living. If you're doing prints, you want to make sure you have plenty of prints. If you already know what's a better seller and whatnot, have a couple of them. You don't want to sell out of everything the first 10 minutes of one print, and then you have a bunch of other ones. So think about if you've had experience in the past of what's working, what you think is going to sell the most. Have a couple more of those than, maybe something you're kind of unsure about. Make sure pieces are ready, finished to sell. So this is so important. You need to be able to take the piece off the wall and hand it to the collector. You don't need to do anything else. It's really going to mess you up. You're going to have to look for a pen or all this stuff. So make sure pieces are ready to sell. For me, I like to focus on artwork more than merchandise. So this is another thing to think about with your time management is how much time do you want to spend dealing with merchandise? Where do I put the hats? Where do I put the t-shirts? All that stuff is great, but at the end of the day, your big chunk of money is from selling original artwork at these festivals or prints of it. Tip number 4 is know your price points. This is really important for sales. If you're at a market and it's a night market. It's free to enter. Maybe there's only a handful of artists there. It might not be that big of art buying clientele that are showing up. So people are going to be a little more reluctant to spend more money. Those big art festivals that are just art festivals, you're going to find that people will spend quite a bit more money or are there to shop. So something to consider. You don't want to bring out a $500 original if you're doing a farmer's market on Saturday morning. It's great to display and show, but your chances of selling those higher end pieces are a lot lower. What I've learned about price points is you kind of have like a $20 price range, a $50 price range, around $100. Then it jumps up to like $200, $250. You get into the like under $500 mark, and then it's around the $800 to $1,000. At art festivals, it's a little harder to sell, at art festivals, it's a little easier to sell those higher end pieces, but the price points really get variable as you go up past 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000. But since this is probably your first art festival, focus on those $20 to $50 price range right there. You're going to get a lot more people buying your stuff. If your originals, if you can do it, if your originals are in that $250 price range, you'd be surprised you'd sell quite a little. $250 to say that $750 topped out for the biggest ones. So price points are really great to learn. And if you don't know them, go to these festivals and start learning what's selling. Also, don't overprice your stuff for the festival. You want to have consistent prices throughout on your website. You want to always be saying the same prices no matter where you are. So it's a lot easier to start out low and raise your prices. But if you start out really high with your prices and then no one's buying them, so you have to lower your prices, that's going to really look bad on you as an artist. And it's not going to make the people who bought your art very happy either, that it's going down in value. So I always think it's better to start out really low and sell out of everything and work your prices up that way than start your prices high and not sell anything and not really know where to go with your art because no one's buying it. So you think, is it my art bad or is it just the price? There's too many variables. So if you start off low, you can always raise your prices. Tip number 5, know your numbers. How many people are coming to the festival? How much art you have? How many prints you have? What your target goal is for making money, breaking even, making more than that. And you got to really work the numbers backwards. If there's X amount of people at the festival, only so many of them are going to stop by your booth. From there, how many people are actually going to be interested and like your work? And then how many people those are going to buy it? So how many people those that are buying it, how many pieces do you need to have for them to be able to pick and choose, find their piece that they like, as well as how much will that make? So you don't want to underprice your stuff so much that you have to sell everything in your booth to break even, but you also want to sell your stuff at a price high enough where you can sell a large majority of the stuff in your booth to a larger audience. Keep track of how much time you've spent on your booth, making your art, getting ready for the festival, all that stuff, because it really helps at the end of it when you have some numbers to go back against and go, okay, it costs this much, this much, this much, and see how much you actually made. I used to get in the habit of thinking I made a ton of money at the art festival, but in reality, it cost me a lot to make my art, for one, but also the time and energy I put into. So it really helped me kind of grow my business sense of what I need to be doing in order to make this a profitable adventure. So tip number 6, make yourself comfortable. Bring a chair. Often these are 8, 10, 12-hour days that you're having, not to mention the week before you had stressing about the art festival. So bring a chair. If you have 2 people, bring 2 chairs. Figure out your snacks, your water, how you're going to eat throughout the thing. Oftentimes when you get hungry, it's going to be a little bit around lunchtime, past lunchtime. The line for the food trucks or whatever's there are going to be long. So unless you've established a little relationship with that food truck prior to the festival, you're going to have to wait in line and be away from your booth, missing sales. So pack some snacks, be ready for it. It's a camp out day. You're camping in your booth. Have everything that you need for it. I'd always have a couple beers in the cooler. Make it super comfortable. Make it so you enjoy it. If you have a friend there, that's amazing. They're going to help give you moral support as well as someone to hang out with through the day, so you're not just there on your own. If you're there on your own, it's really good idea to make friends with the people next to you in your booth, because you're going to have to go to the bathroom and you can say, hey, buddy, can you watch my booth for a few minutes while I go to the bathroom? If you made friends with them, it's going to be, yeah, no problem. So make sure you're polite to the people around your booth and you're just all smiles, just all stoke, and you're happy to be there. That will really help you out when, say, you need a hand grabbing something or watching your booth while you go to the bathroom. Tip number 7, sales. Have a card reader ready. One of those Squarespace cards, you have to do that. If you're going to be using that, make sure your cell phone battery is fully charged and you're not watching videos in between customers. Keep that battery for your card reader. If you don't have a card reader, your maximum price should be $300 because that's the most an ATM will let someone take out. And if you don't have a card reader and they have to go get cash, bye-bye. They're not coming back. Sorry. But have a card reader ready. This is going to be what makes your money. Go figure that out, YouTube it, whatever. Have a card reader to take their money. Also, have change ready. You'll lose sales if they can't get change for 100. If people walk away from that sale, chances are they're going to not come back. Hopefully they do, and it does happen where they come back, of course. But you'll find in the beginning that when they walk away, they disappear. Have your prices ready. You don't want to be fumbling around with prices, figuring out. You don't want the collector to think you're coming up with these prices off the top of their head. It's great to have a little sign saying prints are $40, originals, maybe a little red sticker or a little sticker next to it. Red often means it's sold, but a little sticker next to it with the price, great way to have people come in, see the price point, see if they can afford it, if it's worth it to them to buy your artwork. This is going to really help you in the beginning when you're kind of nervous already to break that little barrier of that first step of sale. If they see it and they know the price, they can start asking further about it. Another thing that's so important that I really didn't get into later with my art career was the email list. If someone buys your artwork and they like it, they like you, they're becoming a fan, it's really easy to get an email number from them, and you don't necessarily have to do anything with it, but having that little database of people who've bought your art in the past that like your work, it really goes a long way. And if your social media disappears or your website goes down, you have all these people to reach out. There's a saying that you'll make 100,000 for every 1,000 emails you collect. Good emails, of course, people that are actually interested in your booth. And this is totally true from my experience. You will make 100,000 if you have 1,000 emails of people who've liked your artwork and have bought your artwork. So when I heard that statistic first, it got me really excited to start doing it. And immediately I saw the result. So I really recommend having an email list, even if it's jotting down on a piece of paper, whatever, get their email. It's good to have in your back pocket just in case you need to use it. Let's see, the 8th step, this is learn. Now, look at other artists and what they are doing. Oftentimes, you're one of the few people that are new to doing art festival. Everyone else has been there for years, maybe even a decade or so. So it's really important to check out their booths, how they're doing it, how they're setting up, how their prints are made, how many people are going to their booth. Be a little spy, check everything out, because it's so easy to get hyper focused on what you're doing and not see what everyone else is doing. And if it's your first art festival, everyone else there is probably more experienced than you. So it's a really good time to learn and make connections and meet other artists. Figure out what they're doing, ask questions afterwards. If your booth is slow and there's no one coming by because you're on the back corner of the area, take a moment to walk around, ask questions. Ooh, what's working? What's not? Did you think today was busy? Get as much data as you can from each festival. Every time you talk to a collector that comes into your booth, when you're starting out, you're really learning how to talk about your art, how to make a sale, how to understand people and what they're looking for. So as you're going through and talking with people, figure out what's working and what's not, what type of talk and story you have that kind of hangs you up. For me, I often go down rabbit holes of stories, and my wife was like, you go on these rabbit holes every time you talk to someone about blah, 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 and the way you do this and that. And, you really got to keep it pretty short and simple in the beginning. The more and more you realize they're into it, the more and more you can dive deeper and deeper. But I'd always just dive off in the deep end of these minute details that no one cares about. They're just asking about this and that, So that's something really important. Continue to work on your spiel and get better at it as you go throughout the day or the weekend. I used to make a list of all the questions I got asked during the art festival, and so I could get better at knowing what would be coming. If it's usually the same 5-10 questions. So Kind of figure out those and good answers that are short and sweet, not just I've been doing it 1 year, 2 years, whatever it is. Get your answers and, you can have a short version and a long version, but kind of understand what's coming at you in the art booth. Who, what, why, when, where, and how are generally what they're going to be asking you. So have a good idea before you start to have those questions answered. Write it out. It'll make a big difference. Throughout the art festivals, I would be taking notes constantly in my phone. Just little stuff that come to mind, what I see, all this stuff, because you're right there, you're in the thick of it, and it's a lot harder to remember those things a year later. I would save that note, and when the next art festival comes up, I would go through all those notes and see where I can make improvements. At the end of the art festival, often the next day or that night, I usually can never sleep that night. I'd be so wound up and excited, but I would start making lists of everything at the festival, just basically write out like a debrief of what happened there. If you go through that stuff really fresh in your mind, and writing it down, you're going to be able to use that later on. It's really easy to forget all that stuff. But that first day, second day, or the day after the festival, take a half an hour and write everything you can, everything that came to your mind during that festival. And it's really going to help you out a lot. Also, remembering clients' names, collectors' names, that sort of thing. If a few people bought originals, write their names down along with their email address. But make sure you know those people and you start collecting the names of your collectors as well, not just the email. So when they come back the following year, or they reach out in 6 months for a commission piece or something like that, you're able to address them by name and start being better at connecting with your collectors. This is so important. And if you just kind of write everyone off after the sale, you're going to really have a hard time getting return collectors. So time management is very important with your art festival. Waking up early, being ready, having everything ready to go, because there's always going to be Murphy's Law. Whatever you don't think is going to happen is going to happen. Make sure you have enough time to do that and deal with it. If you have a complicated setup, you should be there before the doors open to set up. And you need to be really hustling if you can't get your booth ready in the hour or 2 hours ahead of time. I used to have really complicated booth setups where we'd build an entire wall, paint it white. We made our own art gallery on the grass for the Holiday Art Festival. I'd be there the night before, working in the dark with a headlamp, building the wall, painting the wall, getting it right. That way in the morning time, when you had the 1 hour where you could drive up to your booth, I was just having to deal with unloading the art and setting up, because my booth took so long. So take that into consideration. If you only have 2 hours to set up your booth, don't overcomplicate it. Make sure you're ready to go. Do everything you can ahead of time before doing art festival, because being late means you're stressed. Being stressed means you're going to be in your head, and it's going to be hard to shake that all day. So you want it easy, smooth going, everything on time. Fill your gas tank ahead of time. Be ready. Another thing with time is not spending too much time with one person. Oftentimes I'd have friends come to the art booth, and I was so happy to see them that they came by that I would spend 30 minutes with them talking, and they didn't buy anything, and there's other people in the booth that I kind of wasn't paying attention to. So make sure that when people come to the booth, everyone you acknowledge and you talk to. If someone's taking a long time with you, which is totally okay, it's okay to be like, oh, just 1 second, let me ring this person up, or let me answer this person's question. They're okay to wait. They're obviously interested, and they can handle 2 minutes while you ring up another person. It even looks great because you're that busy that you have to multitask. Also, another thing with time is in that first, when you're setting up your booth, you're kind of rushed to get in there and you have a lot to do. Don't over focus on the minute details of your booth. You'll be changing that throughout the day. It's not until you do a bunch of art festivals that you know exactly where everything goes and you set up and boom, it's perfect. When you're starting out, you're like, oh, do I put my prints on this side? Do I put my prints on this side? The sun, where's the sun going to be? I'm cooking on this side, so I need to move my booth a little bit this way. That's totally okay. Make the changes as you go. When it's a little slow, move the table left, move to the right, whatever you have to do. But just don't be afraid to make those little changes to your booth throughout the art festival. Tip number 10 is have fun. Art festivals are a blast. You get to meet so many other artists, see so much art, meet so many collectors, learn so much. They're such a fun time. you're going to see all the other artists year after year, you're doing this. So start making friendships and, create that community that can support you as being an artist. It's so much fun. Leading up to an art festival, there's often a little bit of an anxiety. I know I would have it, hard to sleep the night before and stuff, but it's all part of it. And no, nothing bad's really going to happen. The worst case scenario is your booth completely disappears with all your art. Well, that's not that big of a deal. You'll just make some more, right? So have fun, lower your expectations, and you're going to have a lot better time. You'll probably be surprised of how well you do. Don't go in there thinking you're going to sell everything and it's going to be the most perfect, amazing experience and nothing's going to go wrong. Something's going to go wrong. It's not going to be perfect, but just being out there with a bunch of other artists is fun in itself. So just appreciate what you're doing and how much fun it is. So it's art festival season right now, summertime when I'm recording this. So start looking into it now, because oftentimes there's quite a delay between application and the actual art festival. So it's really good to put that stuff in your calendars and make sure you stay up on top of it every time. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. Get out there, do an art festival. They're so much fun. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, please leave them below in the comments. I answer everything. So get out there, have fun, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and see you at your art festival. Aloha, stay inspired. You.